Welcome, and at the last minute, as things happen, Claire Webster has just been shut out because of a technicality of our presentation. So, hi, I'm Joanne Besner, and I am one of the speakers, but I'm going to take over Claire's role for today and introduce our Caring Conversations. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the McGill Dementia Education Program's Caring Conversations. And this is another free community outreach initiative to provide virtual support to care partners of people living with dementia. Lucy Barylak and myself, Joanne Besner, are going to host these conversations about caregiving and the various issues that affect the lives of care partners. Caring Conversations is a project of the McGill Dementia Education Program and is supported by the Petro-Canada Caremakers Foundation. So we're going to ask that you keep your microphones turned to mute. And because we're hoping for a very interactive session, we will unmute people as needed once we open up the discussion. So I'm going to start having the pleasure of presenting my friend and colleague, Lucy Barylak. She is a social gerontology consultant for the CIUS West Central Montreal and a graduate of McGill University School of Social Work, where she is also a liaison supervisor. She has developed evidence-based training for seniors and caregivers, and she lectures in the field of social gerontology and knowledge transfer. She facilitates Dear Lucy, an online caregiver support show funded by the WellMed Foundation in the US. She was founder and longstanding manager of the Caregiver Support Center at CLSC René Cassin, a respite center for family and informal caregivers. Lucy received the Queen's Jubilee Award for her role in developing a national coalition to support caregivers across Canada. And for myself, I am an educator and certified professional coach and caregiver as well. I also went to McGill and received my Bachelor of Social Work and Master of Business Administration. I've had a 35-year career in public community healthcare in Quebec, and I've had the privilege of having many roles, including frontline case manager. I've been a clinical supervisor, manager, researcher, and trainer. Mostly in home care for adults experiencing loss of autonomy, the caregiver services, and admission to public nursing home. A few years ago, in 2019, I retired from public health care, and today I work as a coach and facilitator, focusing on social services and healthcare, and create workshops for community organizations, including McGill, where I'm also a liaison supervisor. Very, very strange to present oneself. Today, we're looking at how dementia changes our relationship with the person we are supporting. So Lucy and I are going to lead a discussion about how caring for either a spouse, a parent, or a friend affects it all, your communication, your social life, and your intimacy. So I'm going to just take a second to remind you how to participate. If you're on a computer, at the bottom of your screen where it says reactions, you simply click and you will find a raise hand tab. You just click on that. If you're calling in, dial *9. If that doesn't work for you, just wave your hands and Maria, who is helping us out, will hopefully see you. And if that doesn't work for you speaking out loud, please feel free to use the chat box, and Maria will stop us at any time and share either if you have a comment or a question. Okay, so I think we are going to move right along. Hold on. So hello, everyone. Now I can see you. I am going to share our presentation. So here we go. So today we are really asking you the question, how has dementia affected how you relate to the person you support? And we know relationships do change with dementia. So this is our third session, and today we're going to do a little bit less information giving. And we really want to hear a lot about stories. We really feel that you, everyone who's come today, who's living this journey of dementia, you're the experts, and we want to hear your stories. So today what we're going to do is start with the stories. Then Lucy's going to talk about changing spousal relationships, and I'm going to focus more on changing parent and child relationships. And as we always do at the end, we want to leave you with some tips. So we're going to summarize everything we can figure out today about building our resilience and coping and making life as best we can going through these changing relationships. So I'm going to start with this wonderful question. What's your story? And that's what today is all about. So I'm actually going to start by sharing a few of stories that I've heard. When I was preparing for this session, I spoke to a few close friends and colleagues, and I didn't have to go far to hear about their experiences. And I asked the question. So I want to start with my my first example. My best friend growing up next door to me. We lived backyard to side by side. We could see through each other's windows. And her mom was her cheerleader, her champion. She was that mom that was the most fun person on the block. And I would often go over there to sleep over because we just wanted to be there. When I asked her, what was the most important change in your relationship? It was about that her mom always had her back. She was her biggest defender. She could do no wrong in her eyes. And then with the onset of dementia, and for her, it was a 14-year journey, everything changed. My friend moved away to Calgary, and her mom followed shortly after to help her and help her with the kids. And in the beginning, when dementia came on, she said it was very interesting. There was a bit of a honeymoon period. And why? Because her mother suffered from bipolar disease. So as good as her childhood was, there were periods where she would become very paranoid and aggressive. And it would be, there would be challenging times. And in the beginning, when she was diagnosed and her memories started to fade, interestingly enough, she forgot who she was angry at. She forgot why she was upset. So things became calmer, and that lasted for 6 years. But then the next 8 years was when she really lost her mom. And she said, my mom did everything for me. And when that happened, she could no longer. I became the one who did for her. And eventually she had to move her into a nursing home. I also was recently talking to a contemporary of mine, and I knew his mom too growing up. And he said, Joanne, could you ever believe in a million years that my sweet, gentle mom, who would never utter a swear word, has become somebody completely different? The other day, he was taking her for her flu shot, and she was amongst the staff, yelling, impatient, saying, what kind of a business are you running here? And he said, I found myself, telling my mom, you need to behave in a different way. You need to be polite. And he was pulling out everything that she taught him growing up. And he just said, in all my years, I could never imagine that my mom would swear or be this way when she was my rock. And finally, I asked my husband, and he said, Joanne, it's very simple. Before dementia, my mom took care of me. And after dementia, I took care of her. And it broke my heart to see her like that. So these are some of the stories that my friends have shared with me lately. And I'm wondering, does this bring up anything for you? Is it making you think of your story? So again, we're inviting you. You don't have to wait till the end. You can join in our conversations. That's why it's called Caring Conversations. So again, Maria, I hope you're checking out the chat or seeing if there's raised hands. But if you're not ready to share, we're going to move on to Lucy, who's going to share a story or a letter from one of her clients.
Okay, so just give it another minute or so. First of all, thank you so much for introducing me, Joanne. I appreciated that. Just to let all of you know that I was a caregiver for my mother for over 10 years as well. And the story really touched me because I was able to relate to some of the things you were saying.
Joanne, there's something funny on your screen.
There, it's gone.
Sorry, Lucy.
Is it gone?
Yes, it's gone. That's what happens when you're technically, when you're doing things.
When we've had to jump in at the last minute and replace someone.
Right. Okay, so while you're thinking about it, let me share. I get a lot of emails from caregivers in the United States where I do my platforms, and they refer to me as Dear Lucy, and Joe Coach is over there. So this is how it goes. My husband and I have been married for over 50 years. We have 3 adult children and 4 grandchildren. Paul and I married very young, and in a way, we matured and grew up together. Our marriage was like most marriages, with its ups and downs, but we stayed together and built a life together. Paul was diagnosed with dementia 3 years ago. My whole life has been turned upside down. The daily care is not a problem. I feel like I lost my best friend. I lost my partner, and I'm devastated. When I tell my children how I feel, they get angry with me and tell me that I should feel bad for Dad and what he's going through. Friends no longer call or visit. I'm told to take care of myself. It's easy to say. I want my life back. I'm angry, frightened. I feel guilty, selfish, and feel very much alone. And she signed it, Susan. So I'm just going to throw this at you. Can anyone relate to what Susan is going through? Does anybody feel that way? And what's happening in your caregiving journey? It's a lot to take in.
Joanne, I wonder I can't see anyone if they raised their hands. So I'm wondering if they physically raise their hands, I'm wondering if there's any way that I can see people. You can also add, oh, there's a question here. You get.
Yeah.
Go ahead, you get.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for introducing us. It's the first time that I join in. I've seen it before, but I've always kept it behind. I don't know. I just figured that I don't need help. It's like everybody else that denies that we need help. For my husband, it's been diagnosed 10 years, but almost 10 years, but I knew it before. I was fighting with the doctors because they were saying it was la déprime. Okay, but I knew it was not that because I kept saying that, like take him for a weekend and you'll know it's not only la déprime, it's more than that, So just a short roundup. My husband rewrote the mining law of 40 countries. We've traveled a lot, both of us, because I was also with the travel industry as well. And he was very, very independent, and I was as well, because he was doing his things, I was doing my things. It's a package deal. I took his 2 children. He had the La Garde full time. They were 5 and 7. I had one that was 4, but it worked out very well. They've always considered themselves being brothers and sister. Okay. My husband has always been optimistic, really optimistic, very independent, always had good manners at the dining table. As I said, we wrote 40 mining laws in 40 different countries. And anyway, so now it has changed a lot. Okay, definitely. He can barely read. He can read, but we still play Scrabble, which is unusual. But anyway, it takes a long time, but we still play. Table manners, sometimes, it's awful. You feel like he's a kid that you always have to say, hey, be careful, do that, do that. Independent, not at all. I cannot go upstairs without the dog following in 3 minutes and my husband in 5 minutes. Okay. So it's like a two and a half kids that says, where's my mom? Okay. That's it. He doesn't see me. Optimistic, not at all. He's become very pessimistic, very anxious at night. Okay. Especially now it starts at 4 o'clock at night. Even medicated, but I don't want to medicate it more because I don't want him to be a zombie. Anyway, to say the story, the children, two are abroad, so one cannot really come. He's very far. The other one comes on a regular basis, and I have his son studying here at McGill, so he's staying with us. And the other one, she denies it. She's in Montreal. She denies it completely. She doesn't have to. She doesn't want to do anything. Anything to do with her father. So really no brothers, no sister, also on my side as well. So other than friends, it's okay. I'm very well supported by a very good female friends, okay, all the time. But to do things with him, nobody, okay, because after a while they just get bored because the discussion is not that interesting. And this is mainly, and they always said poor Paul, and this is basically my thing. Poor Paul. Okay, but what about me? I mean, he forgets 2 minutes later. I'm not even saying 5 minutes later, 2 minutes later. What about me? It's always poor Paul. And sometimes I get so frustrated. It's so angry at people by saying that. And I've said it to some of my friends. Stop that. Who do you think I am? I have no life now. And it's true. I have no life because if I went for lunch the other day in a concert with a girlfriend, and two people are here. My godson lives here and he's 50 years old, so there's someone, and my grandson, lives here as well. So he was here. Paul is not alone, but he phoned me because my phone was off 22 times. I know it because at night I erased the phone calls, that he received, because otherwise the next day he calls back and he receives crank calls. And if I called him, he'll call me and say, oh, you called me. But he phoned me in that lapse of time 22 times. So really, I feel like I have not only a second skin over me, but an elephant on my shoulder. So basically, this is it. It's like you've got no life and nobody understands what you say. The answer is put him in a residence. But I don't think I'm not ready to put him in a residence. And he's not ready. He still does a lot of things by himself. And I don't think it's the solution. If he goes into a residence, he'll fall. He'll fall completely. But this is my belief. Okay. So that's it. I don't want to take everybody's time.
I want to say that Angela wrote in that, yes, she has a very similar situation, but she's caring for her mom.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I really want to thank you for sharing your story. It's extremely touching, and I think this is why we wanted to do this, because a lot of caregivers feel this way that are going through this, and it's important to know that you're not alone in that. Yeah. So I really thank you for that. We will talk about, Joanne was saying we're going to discuss some tips later on, but this is so helpful for other people to hear also, and that the way you're feeling is really quite normal.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And if I can just add, we talked last session, I think, you said you were present also, about the importance of sharing with our friends and our family how we do feel. So really, kudos to you for having the courage to say how you feel, because we have to help others understand what we need. Mm-hmm. And that's one way to do it, is to be able to express it to them.
Very often, especially one friend, her answer is always, well, it's not going to get any better. Well, this is not an answer that I want to hear. I mean, I know it's not going to get any better. I don't want to hear that, it's like, but anyway. Mm-hmm.
Lucy, do you want, if there's no other comments, do you want to go on and talk about the spousal relationship and some of the things that Huguette brought up we're going to hear as well.
Yes, I mean, we can go right into that, or we can talk about coping with those changes at all. Okay. You know, I want to talk about change. I mean, this has been, as you get said, things change. And even with the letter that I received, the life was turned upside down. But I do want to say that change is not easy, especially as we get older. I just want to quote a quotation that I thought really captured for me something. And it said, "The expected is just the beginning. The unexpected is what changes your life." And it was written by Chandra Range, and she's a screenwriter and author in the United States. So I just want to go on that although we know we might one day happen, few people plan in advance to be family caregivers. We seldom know how or when a family member's health will change or our responsibilities as a caregiver will begin. So it's really a new experience. So with the unexpected changes come unexpected feelings. Very much what you get was also saying there is grief, there's anger, there could be frustration, anxiety, depression, isolation. And the question that I hear a lot from caregivers is, why me? Why him? Why her? So when one spouse or partner needs care from the other, the whole dynamic of the relationship changes. You go from familiar in many aspects of your life to the reality that you are now responsible for that person. You know, so no matter how you feel, it's important to acknowledge that things have changed. And so I'm going to go over a little bit of what, you know, it sort of touches at what you get was saying. There's a loss of companionship. And we know that through what caregivers tell us from research, not seeing yourself as a couple for some people as well. The loss of shared activities and responsibilities, taking over certain tasks that the person did before, things that maybe we took for granted, like even daily tasks, taking out the garbage, car maintenance, going shopping, cooking, doing the laundry, besides all the caregiving activities that you're helping that person with. Sometimes it's even the loss of employment. Some caregivers have had to give up their employment, and that has a great effect on their financial situation. Taking over finances. A lot of caregivers said that, they never dealt with that. It's almost like learning something completely new. And I do want to touch, because I was talking about loss of friends. Many times caregivers tell us that in the beginning, friends are there, even family members, and things stop because the person really can't socialize as much as before. And it's not that people are not wanting to see you. Sometimes they feel uncomfortable and they could get embarrassed by the behavior of that person, maybe at a dinner table or going out for whatever reason. So really isolation does set in, and we know that. And adult children too may not be on the same page, and as you heard for yourself. And many times they're not understanding what you're going through and feeling somewhat uneasy, or even having tremendous denial about the person that you're caring for. So there are all changes in intimacy and affection as well. It can become more unpredictable and harder to deal with. I was speaking to a caregiver not long ago, and she said that's a big issue about the demands, unfortunately, what her husband is making on her and how difficult it is. So, the other thing that I was also looking at, and a question that I would ask some of you, do you feel that your language changes? And what do I mean by that? So, for example, when people ask you, and how are you doing? Do you answer by talking about him or her rather than yourself? The loss of self many times, it is very, very hard because you're so consumed with that person. I think that few people can understand how difficult it is for a caregiver unless you actually have to deal with that. So, relationships do change. There's a lot of food for thought. And maybe if I could share, as I said, I was a caregiver for my mother. And as Joanne was talking about the stories, my life changed dramatically. I was an only child, and my relationship with her. And even though I was I was in the field, I knew what I had to do. There's a big difference when you lose that relationship with that person who's not there anymore. It's extremely difficult. And the whole idea of denial and acceptance is very, very hard. Yeah.
So Juliette had something to add.
Sure.
I don't want to take the whole time, but on the other hand, you say something that a lot of people have told me also. They tell me, like you said, it was your mother. Did you live with your mother?
That's a good question. I tried to live with my mother. We tried to have her stay with us. Unfortunately, my mother smoked a pack of cigarettes a day, and my youngest daughter at the time was asthmatic. So it was a huge, big problem. But I understand that it's very different than when you're actually living with someone 24 hours.
Exactly. Because a lot of my friends say, well, my father had this and my mother, and I know that. And it's like I look at them and I kind of say, okay, you go and visit them or you take care of them, maybe even if you go every day, but you sleep well at night. I don't. It's like, or if you go and visit twice a week, but then you're able to do your own activities, continue your life, maybe as you were before, or restrict. I must admit, I'm not complaining because we go out a lot. I still take Paul to the concert, theater, cinema. We have a routine that is, every Tuesday, it's a cheapo Tuesday. We go to the movies and then we have concerts and it's always surrounded with my friends. So, and we go and have dinner before. So we're very lucky because we're able to do it financially and because of our taste, and our friends are coming. So he doesn't talk at the table. Okay, my friends talk to him, and it's all girls, huh? It's all women. So they kind of flatter him and all the time, and they're very nice. But he doesn't communicate really much. Okay, but after he sits there, and after we ask him what he thought, and his way of how do you say, la façon de donner voyons, comment il commente son commentaire sur la pièce or the concert, so on, is very good. Most of the time, it's very good. So he participates and he's there, but he's not there. And but it's like we come back, and when we come back, he could bug on something, and then we have a crisis, and we don't go to bed until 3:00 in the morning because he doesn't stop worrying about, is there money in the bank, or is there somebody else in the house, and he goes into the room and looks for. So it's like when people don't live with that, they see him at a table socializing, but they don't know what's going on beside closed doors, which is the same for every couple. But anyway, like this is why my question was aimed at that. Did you live with her?
No, you're absolutely right. There is no comparison when you're with that person 24 hours, for sure.
Janet.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Janet has something to share, I think.
That comment about your mother struck me because my mother did live with us and had dementia. And I find, that was hard-ish and frustrating, but it quite different from having my spouse have dementia, I must say. I think it's partly because, when it's your mother, she's older than you, and she's, I wasn't looking to her for feedback, for sharing decision making, for working on together on finances or making decisions about family things. So I find it quite different and way harder having a spouse with the dementia. And I have to say, I was shocked. I was first shocked when I was referred to once, the first time, as a caregiver, because I hadn't really thought of myself in that role. I thought that my husband had some memory issues, but I didn't at first realize the tremendous impact that it would have on my life. And you asked about changes and the impact on the relationship. And I'm finding it very interesting because I was surprised to find in myself not only the greater irritation, but the greater compassion I had. So that was a positive for me to discover that. But the losses were much greater, as I mentioned, feedback, companionship, the help, having to take on all those other chores that you mentioned. One of the things that I noticed was that I have a greater expectation for my children. And I find that a bit tricky. I try to, when they don't live in the same town, and when I see them on Zoom or however, I'm happy to see them, and I think I show a cheerful demeanor. And I have a very dear girlfriend who took it upon herself to phone my children and tell them I was in crisis and that they needed to step up to the plate. And I know she did that out of affection for me, but it created a real a schism, for us. And I'm still working through that. Like, one of my children thinks it's obvious she needs to be more involved and more helpful, and the other one, I don't know what he thinks, but I don't feel him closing the gap as much. So I'd be interested in hearing some tips about how you involve the kids. I think they don't always expect. I don't know if they want to know, or if really it's the best thing to tell them how hard it all is. I don't know.
That's a great question. As parents, I can only speak for myself, but I think a lot of parents feel they want to protect their kids, especially when children are not living in the same town.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you from my own experience, both on a personal level and as a professional, I think the best way to handle a situation like that is to let your children know what you're going through and what your husband is going through. It doesn't have to be, it's not a matter of, accusing, you're not doing enough. It's just telling the reality of what it is and sort of sharing and letting them know and see. And, there's nothing wrong with asking if you need support and some help. There's always negotiating. But I think your adult children, they have a right to know what's going on.
Yeah, thank you for that, Lucy. It's so complicated, and there's often intersecting between how you're feeling in your partnership with your spouse, and then how it's impacting on the children. Maybe some of the answers when you look to, how your kids involve themselves is recognizing not only your losses, but they're going through this loss too, and also fear. One of the things we see with the parent, with having your parent impacted, and then your other parent is a caregiver, is like your parents, they're the matriarchs and patriarchs of our families. They're the lead, they're at the head. And it's a big reminder, and it's a comfort, but it's a reminder that, hey, they're first in line, but they're not going to be here forever. And all of a sudden, there's so much role reversal, you know, where your mom or your dad was the person that always took care of you. They doted on you, they protected you, you looked up to them. And it is frightening to turn around and see, wow, I now have to guide them. I have to comfort them. Sometimes I have to even coddle them and take on these roles and relationships that are just not supposed to be like that, right? Where parents are supposed to worry about their children. We're not supposed to be worrying about our parents. And yet this is what happens with dementia. We have this tremendous role reversal when it is your parent. The other thing that's interesting, you mentioned among your children is, you know, before dementia or before any parent gets ill, siblings get to be siblings with each other, whether it's good or bad. It's about their relationships, and it could be about having fun. But all of a sudden, when you know maybe you do have to step up and provide care and be a support, it's like, wow, we can't just have fun together anymore. Now we've got to work together. We have to do tasks. We have to share tasks. We have to learn how to collaborate. And again, these are huge challenges. I've seen some siblings, and I'll speak for myself too. I'm one of 3 siblings. We're caregivers. And even if we were brought up in the same home, we didn't have the same experience, and we don't look at things the same way. So it's coming to terms that we have limits. So one person may want to be a super caregiver and do everything, and another person may be feeling almost for their own safety, I have to hold back. I have to protect myself. And it's really hard when people feel like it's not equal. You know, it's just, we're not all carrying our weight. So these are all kinds of things that children go through. Is that bringing up anything for anybody having any similar experiences?
Angela has commented that I live with my mother, and we live in a rural area an hour from Winnipeg. So I guess it's a comment on living with a parent, as some people do. So you know what goes on every day, and also being isolated a little. That's me putting the idea in there.
Yeah, and it is a very valid point. Yes, go ahead, Janet.
One of the complicating factors for me is while sort of wanting and needing help from my son, who lives in the Boston area, he has, I wouldn't call them demands, but expectations from his wife, who has a very close family. And I feel that he's, you know, zooming around visiting her relatives, and that he should be actually coming up here and, you know, spending some time with his dad before he fades away completely. And so I put a little pressure on him, but then I'm also worried. I don't want to cause a rift in his relationship with his wife. And I could use some advice on how to, not tiptoe around that, but you know, how to respect his relationship with his wife, and also my relationship with his wife, while also wanting him to spend more time up with, you know, visiting his dad and being up here, because it is a time of need for me. Something new in our relationship is that I'm obviously needy and expressing it. So now I'm feeling, oh, maybe I should be, you know, going back to sort of pretending everything's fine because I don't want to unload too much guilt on him in his busy life. And also make it hard for him and his wife. I don't know. I find it a bit of a minefield, frankly.
Lucy, I don't know if you want to say something, but I just want to say, Janet, in just listening everything you just shared with us, and you expressed it so beautifully, and honestly about how much you're caring and worrying about him, exactly how you express it to us might be a really good way to open up to him and just be honest. I think, I don't know, sometimes there is a time to protect and keep things away, when other people are in crisis or not ready to hear. But if you pick the right moment and go with the relationship you have and just share, believe that you're going to have the right words, believe that you're going to know what to say at the time, is a good thing to follow your intuition.
That's very helpful. I didn't think of that. Thank you.
No, you're very right, Joanne. It's interesting because conversations are so important to think through before you even approach something as delicate as this is to you. You're so caring that you on one hand, you don't want to impose, you don't want to have conflicts that he would, with his wife. But I think if you can kind of sort of think of how you want to present this, and obviously it's always with no blame, never put him on the defensive or make him feel in any way that that you're angry with him or your expectations. And as Joanne said, I think the most important thing is just be honest from your heart and just talk and see where, instead of asking, when can you come? Or I really want you to come. See what he has to say after you express yourself. You might be surprised. He might very well listen and come up with a solution as well.
You get she's written, I would be curious to know how many participants have real help from their children.
Great question.
So feel free to put it in the chat. I bet we would have a wide variety of answers. One thing Huguette had said, and I think it relates to kids as well. Huguette had said, you're asking about dad, but what about me, the caregiver? And I think it's something for us, for spouses and parents, to think about their kids too. It's important to ask your children, how is it for you? What is, so a lot of asking, what's going on for you? Are sometimes, and I know I could be guilty of this. My parents are elderly. They don't have dementia. They have other problems. And sometimes there are times I've avoided visiting because it's painful. And in really tough times, it's awful, but I might say, you know what, I can't deal with this today. I'm not equipped. I need to take some time for myself. And then maybe another day I can do better. But I think all of us as caregivers, yeah, we're human. We're human.
Tanya wants to say something.
Well, I just want to say that I have 4 children, and the oldest one lives here in Montreal, and my second daughter lives in another province, and my 2 younger ones live down in the US in the Boston area. My older one is fantastic. She really understands what I'm going through. She visits my husband once a week, and yet does many, many other things for me. My second daughter is wonderful in a different way. She visits maybe every second month. She's a professor, and she makes time and comes and spends long weekends with her dad. And I don't have to ask her, but she asks me and says, now, are you going away? Do you need to go away? She likes to come when I'm not around. She likes to be the sole caregiver. I let her have that role. And then the other two are younger, and they have younger kids. They each have 3. And they have made periodic visits. Now, my son, loves his dad, but he's a workaholic, and he just can't get up that often. But yet he tries, he really does try. And he has been up off and on and helps out. And my youngest daughter, she's so great. She wants me to bring him down to New Hampshire to an assisted living down there for the summer.
Wow.
And she wants me to do that, but he's in a nursing home now. And so I really don't have that much problem with my kids. It's just the nursing home scene where he is. And, I'm trying to get him to a nursing home where I live in the Westmount area. And it's like pulling teeth. It's just incredibly frustrating. Day by day, he's on waiting lists and nothing happens. And he's declining before my very eyes. He was doing really well for a while. And this past week, he's just become more depressed, and I don't know. And, you say to the nurses, what's going on? And they'll say, oh, he's just having a bad few days. He's fine. They really don't have time. And I am the primary caregiver. I go in every day to make sure he's going to be okay, and walk him up and down the hall and make sure he's got his hearing aid in, his glasses on, and things like that. They do the best they can, but nobody can help me get him to a nursing home where I live. I travel 3/4 of an hour to get there. So I guess my issues are a little bit different. I do have some great friends who are wonderful. And one in particular is incredibly helpful. Makes food for me, or she gives me her leftovers. I mean, I'm really very fortunate in that way. And she's a great resource. But my battle really is with the nursing home, and it's just getting nowhere. You get nowhere. And it's not even the people in the nursing home, it's the system, the CLSC system. And even the private nursing homes are booked in the Westmount area. It's so frustrating. And I just want to be able to go in and out of the nursing home maybe a couple of times a day and spend maybe an hour or so each time, instead of me going and spending practically the whole day there, because it's too far to get back and forth. Anyway, my kids are, I really must say, do the best they can. I can't have any problems with them, because I tend to thank them for what they're doing. And my older one in particular knows what a trial it's been and how difficult, because he went from, he's a very active surgeon, Boston surgeon from Boston. I was a professor for many years down there. And, the whole gamut, everything you've talked about, my life has changed. It's totally erratic right now, but I don't know. I just go from day to day, basically.
Yeah.
That's it.
No, it's not day to day, it's one moment to moment.
Yeah, it pretty much is. I think for most caregivers, it's from moment to moment.
Oh,
I
Pauline,
just-
I guess it,
Oh.
sorry.
No, I just wanted to add, Tanya, but what I hear you saying is that in terms of your children, you really found a way to appreciate each one's individual way to help, and just celebrating and appreciating how they're helping you. That really encourages children and makes them feel good about what they're doing, despite
You're
the
right.
differences.
Yeah, I think you're right. If you tell them, listen, it's great that you came to visit. Dad really loved it. I think that really helps. They don't know what to do about certain things that are going on, in a nursing home. And my husband's had COVID, and the whole floor has had COVID. And so we went through that.
I do just want to mention our topic, we'll say it at the end, but our topic for next month happens to be relocation. And we're going to be specifically talking about nursing homes and
good.
all that.
Oh,
So
that's-
yes, we will address all of that. It's a huge topic.
So this is a monthly situation. This is a monthly thing. Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Yes, it's a pilot project, and this is our third. So stay with us. And this is exactly it, Caring Conversations. And this is what we're creating for you, is a safe space where you can just talk about what's going on, just a place to come and share. And each time we provide you a little bit of information, but a lot of space to talk.
and it's always on Zoom, so that's good no matter where I am.
Right.
There's a few comments to share.
Please.
Pauline, I guess when Tanya was talking about her children, she said she agrees fully that it changes the relationships amongst siblings. At times, it puts pressure on one of the siblings to become more directive. This changes the dynamics between siblings.
Yeah.
And then Lynn wrote, I live in Vancouver and go back to my parents in Montreal every 3 months for 3 weeks. Then I live with them and I'm able to see the ups and downs of my mom's dementia. I'm sorry, that I would not notice if I was visiting for only a few hours. I find I'm helping offload my dad and also provide the conversation and social relationship I'm no longer able to have with my mom. My brother lives in town and helps in a different way with taxes and repairs in the flat, in addition to frequent short phone calls and visits. 2 different style of help that we hope helps. As to communication with the caregiver, I appreciate honesty and making needs known. Last summer, my father was burnt out and had his own health issues, and I would have liked to know about it earlier, as it would have been better to visit earlier. And then finally, I have from Jean, 2 out of 3 kids are more helpful and involved every week. And I think since we have done genetic testing, the oldest, who was not as helpful, has become more distant. We found out that my husband has the gene mutation that caused FTD or ALS. She says she thinks about this situation for herself, and her 3 children are teenagers, and I don't know how to help her. And then there's a thank you from Alyssa. This was very informative.
Well, we talk about how dementia changes relationships. It's not only about spouses, partner relationship, but the effect it has on everybody in the relationship. Brings out a lot of issues. And I would highly recommend, if people, who do deal with the situation, gets the support and help that they need in dealing with that. Counseling really does help.
You know what, Lucy, I didn't realize we're 5 minutes to the hour.
Yes.
Wow, because it's very easy to get just to feel all your stories, and so we want to thank you so much. We do want to run to the tips because we don't have much time left. Is that okay with everybody if we?
Maybe we could just look at acceptance for a minute. Okay, go ahead.
Sure. We need more time.
Very quickly, I have to say that acceptance is the key word. Acceptance is necessary for your healing process, acknowledging all the uncomfortable parts of yourselves, your emotions, your thoughts, and your past. So the most important thing is to accept the person for whom you are caring, for who they are today. And just on a personal level, that's my story. Once I accepted my mother, who she was at that time, my caregiving journey really changed. Let's go to the tips, Joanne.
Thanks for sharing that, Lucy. So we're going to speed over this. I'm so sorry, but we tape these sessions, and so you're welcome to go revisit it. But what we've said, and in this session and previous ones, remind yourself it's not their fault. This is the disease. And if you can focus on them as the person. Adjust the way you communicate, the way we've spoken. And it is important, as Lucy said, to accept. No one wants to accept an Alzheimer's diagnosis, but we have no choice. It's the new normal, and it's going to be different. But we can still find the meaningful activities and focus on what you can do. And try to remember the person you're caring for, whether you're their spouse, parent, living with them, not living with them, they still are able to continue to give love and receive love. And the challenge is finding how to do that in meaningful ways. Most importantly, for all our caregivers here today, for ourselves, we have to take care of us, make the time to deal with your own emotions, like coming here, say them out loud, admit you're feeling this way. It's okay to be upset and angry and mourn the losses. Give yourself that permission and be open to support. And the last thing I want to suggest, not everybody can do this, but if you can, look for the opportunity. Continue to learn and grow in your role. Can you dig down and say, what do I need to do as a caregiver? What can I develop in myself? What strengths can I build on? What do I need to do to be good for myself and good for my loved one? And where is this journey going to bring me?
Thank you for that, Joanne. I just want to add, prioritize your health. Eat healthy food. Get a lot of sleep as much as you can. Get exercise, fresh air. These are all really, really important things. And give yourself a big hug.
I know, Maria, we're missing our Claire Webster on this, and she was going to conclude. I don't have the comments, Maria. Are you able to conclude and let our participants know what's coming up next month?
Sure. So next month it will be on, December 20th, I believe, in the morning. It's on a Tuesday, and it's about transitioning, trying to knowing the time, if it's time to transition or to consider transition to a supervised care home. And I just wanted to thank everyone for coming today and let you know that, or remind you once again that this has been supported by Petro-Canada Caremakers Foundation. And last month's caring conversation is now posted on our website, and this one has been recorded. We should have told you that at the beginning, and will be available next at some point over the next weeks.
But just to reassure you, it's recorded. You will only see Lucy and myself. You will not see any of your faces or you. So that's confidential.
Do we have a time for the next one? December 20th in the morning. Do we have a more specific time?
It's 11 o'clock. Sorry.
Thank you.
I'm just going to check the date because I'm going by memory, and
Yeah.
Yes,
But I remember
Tuesday the 20th.
The title is Your Home or Care Home.
Yes.
How to know when is it the time, or is it ever the time?
Or it may not be the time.
So we're talking about that, the different options and just considering what you consider in the decisions. And so come back and join us. Lucy, I'm sure you join me in saying thank you for all those who shared, who made yourself vulnerable. We're happy to bring you into our caring conversations.
Thank you very much. It's very helpful.
Pleasure.
And your comments and your stories help other people. Keep that in mind. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.